I never planned to tell this story, but maybe that's why it needs to be told. Because betrayal doesn't arrive with fireworks. It creeps in quietly, hiding behind smiles and soft touches. I thought I knew love, thought I had built something unshakable. But one ordinary evening, with nothing but curiosity in my chest, I stumbled across a message that shattered everything. Her name wasn't written, but her words were. A conversation full of promises she never gave me, plans she made with someone else. For money, for comfort, for something I wasn't enough to give. At first, I couldn't breathe. My hands shook, my chest tightened. I told myself it couldn't be real, that maybe it was someone else, some cruel coincidence. But the more I read, the more the puzzle fit together. The late nights, the excuses, the sudden hunger for expensive things she used to mock. She wasn't in love, she was investing. And I was the investment she was already cashing out. I didn't scream, I didn't throw things. I sat there in the silence of our home, realizing it wasn't mine anymore. She had already sold it in pieces to someone else. That night, while she slept beside me like nothing was broken, I stared at the ceiling and made a choice. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't confront. I wouldn't play the role of the angry man she could paint as dangerous or unstable. No, I would be something else. Something she didn't expect. Patient, quiet, calculated. Because the thing about betrayal is that it gives you power if you know how to use it. And I decided I would use it. Not with violence, not with chaos, but with the kind of silence that eats away at everything she tried to build. The first step was distance. Emotional withdrawal hidden under the mask of routine. I stopped asking questions, stopped giving her what she fed on, my attention, my warmth, my trust. She thought she was clever, that I was blind, but I was watching every move, every lie, every subtle slip she thought I didn't notice. I saved screenshots, emails, transactions, not to confront her, but to keep them like sharp knives, tucked away, ready for when the time was right. She thought she had the upper hand, but in reality, she was already standing on the trapdoor I was quietly building beneath her. She started to notice something had changed. My silence unsettled her more than any argument could. She fished for reactions, tried to provoke fights, asked questions she didn't care about. I answered with calm detachment. That was my weapon, control, because while she thought I was slipping through her fingers, in truth, she was slipping through mine. The mask of love she wore so confidently began to crack, and I saw fear creeping in. She didn't know what I knew. She didn't know how much time I spent connecting the dots. She didn't know that every lie she told was already in my hands. Her world revolved around appearances, friends, followers, the illusion of a perfect relationship. So I made sure to never disturb that image, at least not yet. We attended dinners, posted photos, smiled for the cameras of people who didn't matter. And all the while, I watched her build her castle of lies on sand. I let her believe it would stand. Because the higher she built it, the harder it would collapse. Patience was torture, yes, but it was also art. And I was painting her downfall, one quiet brushstroke at a time, knowing the masterpiece would soon reveal itself. The second step was isolation, not mine, hers. Subtle conversations with mutual friends, little truths slipped in like shadows. Not accusations, not bitterness, just seeds of doubt. She's been different lately, hasn't she? Have you noticed the sudden change? I never told them what I knew. I didn't have to. People connect dots on their own when given the right pieces. And soon, whispers began to replace admiration. The same people she sought validation from now tilted their heads when she walked by, wondering what she was hiding. Her perfect image was beginning to fracture, and I hadn't lifted a finger. She tried harder to hold on to me then. More affection, sudden surprises, expensive gifts I knew she couldn't afford without help. It was almost laughable, watching her act out the role of a devoted partner when I had the script of her double life in my pocket. I played along, smiled when she kissed me, held her hand when she leaned close. But inside, I felt nothing but cold satisfaction, because the more she tried to cover her tracks, the deeper she buried herself. And I knew when the curtain finally dropped, the audience would see her for who she truly was. The third step was exposure, but slow, deliberate, and merciless. Not in public, not in front of strangers. No, it had to be personal, intimate. I let her catch glimpses of my knowledge. A comment that mirrored something she'd only said to him. A casual mention of money that never passed through my hands. Her eyes widened, her smile faltered, but I never explained. I let her stew in paranoia, wondering how much I knew, wondering when the bomb would drop. Fear is a powerful poison, and I poured it drop by drop into the glass she raised to her lips every day. Nights grew restless for her. I could hear it in the way she tossed and turned, in the sighs she thought I didn't notice. Her mask was slipping. Even in sleep, she'd wake up and study me, searching for anger, for proof of confrontation. But all she found was calm, and that calm destroyed her more than rage ever could. Because she couldn't prepare for silence. She couldn't fight what she couldn't see. And the truth was, I didn't need to destroy her. She was already destroying herself. I just had to make sure everyone else saw it when it happened. The crack spread faster than I expected. She grew paranoid, defensive, snapping at friends who asked innocent questions, accusing them of gossiping. But I didn't need to fuel the fire. It burned on its own. Every time she looked at me, her eyes begged for reassurance, for denial, for anything that told her I was still blind. I gave her none of it, only silence. And the silence spoke louder than screams. It told her I knew. It told her I was waiting. And the waiting drove her insane, because she couldn't predict when or how her lies would collapse. The fourth step was exposure on my terms. A quiet dinner with her family, a smile on my face, stories on my lips. And then, like slipping a knife between ribs, I dropped fragments of her truth into the conversation. Not accusations, questions. Did she tell you about the late nights? Funny, she said she hated that restaurant, yet she goes there often now. Their faces shifted, uncertain, confused. And she sat there frozen, trapped between denial and confession. I never forced her to choose. I just watched her drown in the silence, her own guilt dragging her under. After that night, she unraveled quickly. Calls unanswered, messages ignored, excuses piling up like ash. She tried to cling to me, but every time her hands reached, they found air. I was already gone, though my body still shared her space. She began to feel abandonment dressed as presence. And that's when she realized she wasn't in control anymore. The man she betrayed wasn't broken. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even leaving. He was simply watching as everything she built crumbled without me needing to lift more than a finger. That was the punishment she couldn't escape. I waited until she was at her weakest, until her circle had shrunk, her confidence eroded, her mask completely shattered. And then I let the truth breathe. Screenshots released, carefully timed, sent to the right people. Not an explosion, an infection. Slow, precise, inescapable. Every message a reminder of who she really was. Every picture a nail in the coffin of her reputation. Friends turned their backs. Family grew cold. The man she had chosen for money? Gone. Once the lies became too public to ignore. She was left alone, standing in the ruins she had built with her own hands. She tried to fight back, Lies stacked on lies, desperate posts online painting herself as the victim. She said I was controlling, manipulative, dangerous. She cried for sympathy, begged for support, and for a moment, people listened. But the difference between her and me was simple. I had proof. Every accusation she made was met with receipts. Every story she spun was countered with undeniable evidence. Her voice grew smaller, weaker, lost in the roar of truth. And as her final mask slipped away, she realized she had nothing left. Not love, not respect, not even pity. Just emptiness. I didn't celebrate. There was no victory dance, no satisfaction in watching her fall. Because revenge isn't joy, it's justice. And justice is cold. I looked at the woman I once loved and saw a stranger. A stranger who had traded affection for greed, loyalty for convenience. And now she was paying the price. Not because I destroyed her, but because I refused to save her. That was my power. Choosing silence when she expected rage. Choosing patience when she prepared for battle. Choosing to walk away without lifting her from the hole she had dug with her own hands. In the weeks that followed, I watched her fade. Invitations stopped coming, friends stopped calling, her perfect online persona abandoned. She moved through life like a ghost, haunted by choices she couldn't undo. And I didn't interfere. I didn't speak her name. I didn't remind anyone of what she had done. Because the truth didn't need repeating. It lingered in every space she entered, whispered in every silence, carved into her shadow. That was the final stage of her punishment, knowing she had lost everything, not to anger or revenge, but to her own betrayal catching up with her. Sometimes she tried to reach out, messages full of apologies, tears dripping between words. She said she missed me, that she didn't know why she had done it, that money wasn't worth losing me. But I never replied. Because what could I say? That she was forgiven? She wasn't. That I hated her? I didn't. Hate requires energy, and she had drained me of enough already. What I felt wasn't hatred, wasn't even sadness. It was nothing. And nothing is worse than hate. Because hate means you still matter, but nothing means you're forgotten. And that is the sharpest blade. People ask me sometimes if I regret not confronting her, not ending it with fire and fury. And I tell them, no. Because destruction isn't always loud. Sometimes, the quiet dismantling of lies is louder than any argument. She wanted a spectacle, something she could twist into her favor. But I gave her nothing, just patience, silence, and the truth. And the truth did all the work. That's the thing about betrayal. It carries its own punishment. All you have to do is step aside and let it unfold. And I stepped aside, letting karma do what I never had to. So this is my story, not of love, not of loss, but of awakening. I learned that sometimes the best revenge is refusing to play the game they set for you. She wanted chaos, but I gave her calm. She wanted excuses, but I gave her silence. She wanted control, but I gave her nothing. And nothing was what finally broke her. If you're listening to this, maybe you've been betrayed too. Maybe you felt the fire in your chest, the urge to burn it all down. But remember, silence is a weapon, and patience is power. Use them well.